more detail is that people in person will have an opportunity to share comment. Please just address them at the board and not staff or things like that in the room, and we'll make sure we get these questions over to the team. You can ask, maybe give public comment on both the report and Ms. Moser's action items. Ms. Moser, go ahead.
I'll repeat the format. We are now at the point set aside for public comment on non-agenda items. We remind everyone that public comments should relate to matters germane to Board of Elections business. In other words, comments must be about items or issues which are currently before the Board of Elections for consideration or which may come before the Board of Elections at a future date. Items that are not within the authority or purview of the Board of Elections should not be included in public comment. We thank everyone in advance for remaining respectful and considerate during the public comment process and for addressing your comments directly to the Board of Elections. As a reminder, the public comment part of the meeting agenda is not a forum for dialogue or questions and answers. The board welcomes written comments and questions which can be sent to ccelectionofficials@chesco.org. There's a 3-minute time limit per person for public comment. The timer on the podium will count down your time. Please start wrapping up your comments when the yellow light comes on. When the red light turns on, please conclude your remarks. For those appearing remotely, we will provide a 30-second warning. If you would like to make a public comment, if you're in person, please come to the podium, state your name and your municipality before speaking. If you're connected through Zoom, you can use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your telephone keypad. We invite all public comment in person first before moving to comment from those connected through Zoom.
Good evening, James Kirshner, Wallace Township. My guess is that you started this evening planning to listen stoically to all the comments that you're going to hear and believe that tomorrow it's all going to be behind you. I need to tell you that it won't be. Not because I wish you the experience of the hellfire of angry voters for eternity, but because this report and the resulting actions do not solve the problem. It will rear its ugly head once again. I have run many large organizations and have been involved in dozens of incident investigations. I can tell you, this investigation does not find root cause and therefore does not prevent recurrence. Why do I say this? All of the factors that have been identified are either not unique to Chester County or were known prior to Election Day. All of the counties have the same time constraints, use the same software, and get the same guidance or lack thereof from the state. Yet only Chester County had the problem. So that's not a root cause. It's a contributing factor. Staff turnover, the lack of onboarding and training existed well before Election Day. It is the job of management to identify this, identify the risks, and proactively address them. Time does not permit me to give a full critique of this report. I'm happy to share it with you, but it's clear that the scope was too narrow, the investigation was not thorough enough, and there were conclusions drawn based on very limited evidence. The report does not address management failures. It does not look at the broader context of management capability. Therefore, history will repeat itself. There is a common thread with the incident at the jail. You're probably thinking, why? In that case, management failures were identified, they were addressed too late, and it resulted in a tragedy that was narrowly avoided only through the largest manhunt in the state's history. You want this to all be behind us. So do I. But this report does not prevent another failure. It won't be the poll book again. It may not be voter services, but somewhere, sometime, another major failure will occur in Chester County. It's going to impact the citizens, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's going to embarrass us once again. And finally, I feel compelled to talk about compensation because you went down that road. Like I said, I've managed organizations with thousands of people. Compensation impacts recruiting. It has a limited impact on retention. There's an adage that says you quit your leader, not your job. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elizabeth Sieb, Callan Township. Mr. Byerman stated at the beginning of the certification meeting, we are all human, and yes, human error is a factor here, but this goes far beyond that. Mistakes of this magnitude require consequences. The investigation report cites twice that the director is responsible for the mitigation plan of allowing third-party voters to sign the poll book manually. Given the director's tenure and that she is the person who conducts poll worker training, no mitigation other than vote provisionally should have been suggested. As per the report, such voting could enable ineligible voters to cast ballots and could have nullified the entire election. The takeaway, management did not ensure there were checks and balances and gave dire direction to mitigate these mistakes when found. The report clearly states that employees 2 and 3 went to Karen and employee 1 with concerns that poll books were not formatted correctly. Neither Karen nor employee 1 thought if not formatted correctly, perhaps we should ensure created properly. Also per the report, although it is technically possible to spot check the printed poll books before sealing, the time before delivery and sealing is limited. The supplies are picked up the following day as we've established this evening. So yes, it was limited to get all 230 precincts sealed, but are we saying that no one could have taken 5 minutes to open a sampling of books to be checked? Are we saying that management could not have staffed in a staggered shift, thus also decreasing the amount of overtime necessary? Per an article posted in the Philly Inquirer in December, Mr. Byerman stated part of that investigation is looking at the performance of our management team in voter services. In what way was their performance evaluated during this investigation? The CXO conducted one-on-one interviews with the majority of the staff following the publication of this article. Does the overall summarization of the interviews align with what FEKM was told or led to believe by management? Mr. Byerman also was quoted as stating, at the end of the day, I think any manager needs to combine 2 abilities, any ability to manage an office effectively and an ability to be knowledgeable and an expert. Also stating that each manager within the county is evaluated on these criteria regularly. What evaluation is done outside of an annual review? More importantly, when asked if Ms. Barsoum possessed both qualities, he did not respond. Mr. Maxwell, Ms. Moskowitz, you both also declined to comment specifically when asked if you were confident in Barsoum's leadership. According to the report, the employees that were the subject of our investigation did not share any such concerns with our team and were generally supportive of the culture in that department. By their own admission, they only spoke to the director, deputy director, project manager, and registrar. Those in management are ultimately the root cause of the continued toxic work environment. How is the lack of training and high turnover not related with a toxic environment? They only spoke to those that had created the error. Those employees would be hesitant to voice anything negative in nature about work environment in the interest of maintaining their employment. Commissioners, I spoke in May of 25 stating 27 employees had left, been forced out or terminated. In October, that number had risen to 35. It currently rests at 37. Despite interviews with staff, despite staff surveys you've requested twice, despite multiple conversations or executive sessions you've had with Ms. Barsoum, her turnover rate is increasing, not decreasing. You cannot continue to blame the current political climate and pay scale. Commissioners, you were elected by the voters of Chester County to represent and act in their best interests. In my eyes, this is not about whether someone identifies as an R or a D, independent or even spaghetti hat. Can you honestly say with confidence you are doing what is best for Chester County by continuing to allow management to control our elections? This report and lack of action has communicated to the voter services staff and the several thousand other county staff, your constituents, and most importantly, to Ms. Barsoum and her management team that she is untouchable. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Salentano. I'm the Judge of Elections 478 Phoenixville West 2. In the report, page 11, paragraph 5, Ms. Barsoum suggested an initial mitigation plan that would allow registered independents and third-party voters to sign the poll books manually near the appropriate alphabetical position and then to vote as normal. That was suggested not to be the case because the DOS and the Chester County Solicitor said doing that could nullify the entire election. My question is, because as the Judge of Elections that day, there were rumors flying about that they should sign in the poll books. And that question would be, how many votes were cast using Ms. Barsoum's suggestion of having unlisted voters sign in the empty space of the poll book? To know this, we should physically examine the original copies of the poll books, not copies. And if we find them, would that nullify the election? On page 13, there was a timeline of the text messages that were issued. Some of them are missing because I have them on my phone and they're not in the report for whatever reason. One message stated no ID was needed for provisional ballots. That one was actually sent out twice. The other one was third-party poll book error. Supplemental poll books are being delivered in the interim. Any voter not in your poll book must be allowed to vote provisionally. That was at 12:53 p.m. Third-party poll book error. That was unclear as to was it a third party that had made the error, or was this the independent parties or third parties? We weren't sure. That message came out again at 12:58. At 8:19 p.m., closing of the voting machines. Do not close the voting equipment and display election result tapes until all voting has been completed. 8:24, same message came out. Those messages were not listed in the report. Additionally, the Phoenixville Republican Committee has asked for an apology from Max Joshua regarding his statements calling the Republican Party out as wanting to disenfranchise voters, which is wholesale, just not flat out wrong. We have yet to receive an apology. If you want to look at the demands and the reasons for these demands, find it on www.phoenixvillerepublicans.org. Software validation. I've been working on computers since what's that thing called? The DEC 20, the IBM 360, and I have networked fire alarm systems for entire multi-building campuses. To validate the software in that short a period, well, I don't think it could have been done. And by the way, regarding that sort of thing, no electronic poll books ever. To err is human. To err is human, and it's been called out that this was an error. But to really screw things up
Your time has
requires a computer.
expired.
Thank you.
Conclude your remarks.
Sandy Bowman, Chester County. So as we heard, I'm going to reiterate, human error. Human error can also occur in software programming, which we saw in Northampton County. And if you had your proper registration commission, maybe that commission could tackle the problem as to how it is 2019 Act 77 changed the registration to 15 days prior to an election, which is in conflict with the law in this Commonwealth that says that you have to reside in your district for 30 days prior to your election, which is in conflict with the Pennsylvania Constitution that says you have to reside in your district for 60 days prior to the Constitution. So, as you know, I have mentioned on many occasions that elections are a matter of local, state, and national security. And I'm happy that right now, in a coordinated whole-of-government effort, the Director of National Intelligence has been selected to oversee the sanctity and security of our elections directly along with the FBI Director. And I'm going to share a few points from her letter. Election security is a national security issue. Who knew? Interference in U.S. elections is a threat to our republic and a national security threat. To preserve the integrity of our elections, we must understand whether there has been foreign or other malign interference in our elections and whether vulnerabilities exist in our election infrastructure that could be exploited in future elections. The National Security Act provides the DNI with robust authority to coordinate and integrate national intelligence, which includes intelligence pertaining to foreign intelligence and counterintelligence threats to election processes and infrastructure, which means election voting systems and software and voter registration databases. The National Defense Authorization Act designates the National Counterintelligence Officer to lead, manage, and coordinate CI matters related to election security. Executive Order 13848, the President declared a national emergency on the threat of foreign interference in U.S. elections and directly tasked the DNI with assessing foreign interference after every federal election, something that this county should be doing penetration tests before and after every single election. Finally, ODNI is the lead intelligence agency in the Joint Cyber Planning Office, which coordinates and oversees the nation's strategy to secure critical cyber infrastructure, including cyber infrastructure used for elections. And since I don't have time to go through it all, I'm going to leave each of you a copy of her letter. This is serious business. I've been coming here for 5 years. You have a wealth of talent in this county that has offered to volunteer their services to help you with systems and processes.
Good evening. I am Diane Hauser of Euclid. Apparently, the failure to include 75,000 unaffiliated voters in the poll books was due to human error. The issue stemmed from high employee turnover, poor training of employees, ineffective departmental procedures, and a breakdown in leadership from those who oversee our elections. In addition, the Chester County Solicitor provided incorrect legal advice. Human error is an intentional action or failure to achieve a desired goal due to a mistake, high workload, stress, or incompetence. But the failure to do one's job, such as overseeing our elections, is a dereliction of duty, which should lead to a disciplinary action or termination. Who at the top is going to be held accountable for this massive error? Now, I certainly hope that the county is not advancing the use of electronic poll books due to this debacle. After all, besides being a huge cost to the taxpayer, electronic poll books are the most insecure part of any voting system. The connection of the e-poll books to the internet is bi-directional. So the tallies on the e-poll books can be changed remotely in real time via their FirstNet core network connection. The e-poll book knows who requested a ballot, who was sent a ballot, who returned a ballot, who voted early, and who voted on election day. And all this information is in the cloud, and every cloud is hackable. So through the Department of Motor Vehicles, as well as access given to numerous non-government organizations, it's easy to inflate the voter rolls, even with non-citizens. In addition, the Department of Justice has sued the state for refusing to provide their full statewide voter registration files. So I hope electronic poll books is not your solution, because that would make our voting system more vulnerable. Thank you.
Good evening. Dolores Triani. I'm the solicitor for the Republican Party of Chester County. I'd like to begin by addressing some comments to Ms. Moser. The experience of the Republican Party in calling to light the failures of this board has been abominable.
Sorry, Madam Solicitor, can you please direct your comments to the board and not to Ms. Moser?
Certainly. Commissioner Maxwell, you're the main problem. In 2024, we brought to this board's attention the fact that the county solicitor had obtained a court order changing the Phoenixville ward precincts without the required statutory notification. And the response of this board, at least two members of this board, was to retaliate against the Republican Party, which is going on today. And you're paying lawyers thousands of dollars to fight us for three simple asks, one of which is formal documentation when you change a policy. If you want to really have sufficient change here, then you need to talk to us. You need to allow us as key stakeholders to have a voice, and you need to be respectful when we voice that voice. Let's talk some numbers now. It is our understanding that 20,235 unaffiliated voters voted in person, yet there's only 12,335 provisional votes. But we know that some of those were also Republicans and Democrats. But giving you the benefit of doubt, that means that there were 7,918 unaffiliated voters who voted by regular ballot. We don't know when that happened, but we do know this. As was stated by the Joes who were there, the initial direction from the voter services was to have them vote by regular ballot, by signing the book. And we also know that on page 11 of this report that you paid $35,000 to, it clearly says that that advice was wrong. And why was it wrong? Because, as they wrote, it would alter the original, they altered the original mitigation plan. So they agree with me, that was the original plan, due to concerns that such voting would enable ineligible voters to cast their ballot that could not be identified or removed once tabulated, nullifying the entire election. Apparently, the only commissioner here who understood the magnitude of your failure is Commissioner Rowe, who refused to certify this election. This report highlights the systematic failures of the board.
Your time has expired. Please conclude your remarks.
Yes, there needs to be accountability, but every time we've come here, pointed out these deficiencies and demanded accountability, you've denied it.
Good evening. I'm Dalton Lavasser from West Pikeland. Oh, he left. I just have, if there's anywhere I can find information about who was behind the bomb threats of the 2024 presidential election, as well as was there any possible security breach while moving poll places? Because I wondered this because I've paid attention to this voting rights watchdog group called Election Truth Alliance. And with them, they've noticed throughout precincts of Pennsylvania and frankly throughout swing states that around 55 to 60% of the vote, candidate one's votes kind of skyrocket as candidate two's plummet at the same exact mark. And if that happened in one precinct, that's fine. It's just people getting out later. But if it's throughout these different counties and states, will take remarkable coordination. And so the thought behind it is there might be something with the tabulation machines. And they just referenced the same group to the report for the Canadian elections, and they found they hand count up there. None of these kind of error, like these strange anomalies, which you don't find with human behavior. It's only through like algorithms. So I'm just wondering, I'm under the impression that we use in Chester County electronic tabulation machines. And if that is true, can we switch to hand counting to provide an audit? Because if you see the mistake, the human error that happened here, if that can happen one time with one little thing, and it can happen on a wide scale too, especially if there's a very big incentive to win an election. That's all.
Good evening, Michael Baladejo again. Mr. Maxwell, you expressed concern regarding the cost of postage to the county recently. Perhaps you should check in with voter services. Some voters who submitted changes in September have received upwards of 4 different identification cards. It seems batches may not be getting confirmed properly, and every one of those IDs costs approximately $1. I can only imagine the number of extra ID cards being mailed, as well as the confusion for voters, since submitting a singular change months ago has generated numerous correspondence, further supporting the lack of training mentioned by the investigation. In describing the poll book error, people are confusing the technical simplicity of the mistake itself with what we should be and are actually investigating. The simplicity of how the mistake was made is irrelevant. The concerns are more why it wasn't caught, why people who had concerns were brushed off, the complexity of what needed to be done to fix it, and the actual consequences as well as the potential consequences. Those stating it's just human error, mistakes happen, are disregarding that none of that was simple. The focus has been on the checkbox or the wrong button, but they are ultimately disregarding the unknown quantities, what we missed when we were scrambling. How many people didn't vote for various reasons because of the chaos? As simple as how much time they had available that day to get their vote in before work or other obligations. Or as complex as a lack of faith in the results or added stress in a stressful process. The worst part about this, the inaction here, is that we haven't even seen all the potential consequences yet. And on a side note, Chester County election official go to voters, not to the commissioners. Thank you.
How you doing? John Lewis from New London Township. This room brings back great memories. I was juror number 1 in a murder trial. Yeah. So one of the things that hasn't been addressed by anybody in the room is the word on the second page, disenfranchised. How many voters were disenfranchised and did not vote? That is the most important thing. You guys can fix all the rest, but you can't fix what you messed up in the front. So there's people that didn't vote, okay? That's your responsibility from a statutory, this is your responsibility. I personally believe if there's a person here who ran and lost their election, they should sue you. You did not run a free and fair election. I'm sorry, okay? Bad management's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. You need a new legal team. They screwed up the certiorari, gave you that advice. And then I was there when you did certify, and they told me, by statute, you have to do it. Well, Commissioner Rose said, no, I don't. And he was right, because it was wrong to do it. This was not a free and fair election in Chester County. Plain and simple. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm not going to, I was really bad that first time I talked to you guys. I was mean and nasty. I'm not going to be mean and nasty anymore. You know what? You guys failed us. Plain and simple. You failed every single person in this room. Every single person. You failed them. It's inexcusable. And they're right. You need accountability. You need accountability. And what these guys did, they addressed the legal side of it. You did not address the side of the fact that there are so many people here that no longer trust elections in this state. Because what you showed us is the Department of State doesn't know what they're doing, and we saw that Chester County doesn't know what they're doing. So we can't trust it. It's that simple. Thank you.
Ryan Glisson, Westchester. I want to start with there's no accusations here. Just some questions and concerns with this whole thing that I've had for a while and don't seem to be getting enough public attention. My main concern is with the county and specifically with the hiring of this particular firm. The lack of accountability being suggested over this human error. The firm report said that they were guided by the county and that the county fabricated the questions to be asked and kind of directed the whole thing. The investigation presents an appearance of institutional bias because the firm was retained, scoped, and compensated by the same government entity whose actions were under scrutiny, review, without independent scope control, external oversight, public disclosure of investigative limitations. Basically saying, we're hiring you to investigate us. People don't do that. They hire outside firms to do that. Never mind the confirmed political donations that these two individuals and the firm have made to county politicians, including judges like McGarry and Wheatcraft. These two and their firms' names appear all over campaign data reports with Act Blue. I see a lot of conflicts of interests and red flags, appearance issues with this entire thing. Why this firm? Why not an outside firm who isn't politically biased, connected to local politicians, judges, and taxpayer-funded NGOs? Just some things that, in my opinion, need to come to light.
Frank Spidell, Thornbury Township. Let me begin, Commissioners, by thanking you for having this tonight and clearing some air. We appreciate the opportunity. We've heard a lot tonight about one of the problems is error. It's because we have human beings. Human beings make error. I invite, as you go forward and you look for solutions to how we got to this spot, I invite you to look at systems approach. Where things are scripted beforehand, where there is written structure, do this, do that, where jobs have specific descriptions with qualifications to accomplish the jobs. Again, I thank you for having this tonight. Good luck.
Hi there, Joe Greco, Schuylkill Township. Does anyone find it ironic that we're in a courtroom tonight? And what if I were to tell you there's a legal term that describes everything that the report stated? And that term is negligence. I haven't heard it come up once tonight. In fact, I would argue that voter services not only was negligent, but also grossly negligent. We know that they had a duty, and that duty was breached. There was excessive and reckless disregard for standard operating practices, which the report also established, which resulted in actual harm and the disenfranchisement to voters. So while the report says all of that, it doesn't actually say negligence. We need to say negligence. We need to acknowledge that negligence occurred. And if this were a courtroom, voter services would be held liable. That's all.
Hi, my name's Jim Horgan. I'm from East Marlborough Township. First of all, I hope everyone's made convincing arguments here tonight. We have a jury, it seems, sitting here over on the side. Not sure exactly who these folks are, but the report by those contracted to do the investigation says that, in the first page, we found that someone hit the wrong button to generate the poll book. And everyone we talked to sounded credible. So therefore, the next page says, importantly, we found no evidence of intentional wrongdoing, misconduct, or bad faith on the part of any employees who generated the poll books. Now, that's a little bit of a qualified statement in itself. But anyway, I'd like to ask the attorneys to detail or clarify exactly what they did to check whether there were any intentional errors. Did they put out a preservation notice for communications of the Director of Voter Services with others, both in official communications and maybe personal communications? It's just incredible to believe that this kind of mistake could happen. One other thing, the scope has been mentioned, and the attorneys have limited their investigation according to the scope, and they've said so. I would like to ask if they ever asked to expand the scope of the investigation. Thank you.
Yes, Kent Kingan. I'm in East Whiteland. Just a couple quick comments. To me, 70,000 voters were not disenfranchised. 12,000 voters who had to vote provisionally on election day were inconvenienced. I also want to make a comment about some of the numbers of independent votes and stuff like that. Independent voters were able to vote by mail as well as on election day using provisional ballots. I'd also like to say that because of this poll book printing issue at this and both earlier meetings, some people have already said they want to see heads roll. In my 40 plus years of work experience, I know private companies in a similar situation would be firing someone and looking to create a scapegoat. Unfortunately, I've also seen that at times that creates a much bigger issue down the line. It negatively impacts morale, puts people on eggshells, and forces valuable people out the door. While I certainly wish this mistake didn't happen or had been caught via a checklist, the facts suggest that it was a simple, unintentional human mistake. My feeling is that the folks that currently work in election services know that they screwed up and feel terrible about this situation. Accordingly, they will be far less likely to, far more careful about such things going forward than any new people may be. While firing someone may appease some people, I don't think it's in the best interest of Chester County overall. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Prospero Fox. I'm a former Voter Services employee. I was there from August of 2020 until mid-2024. I wasn't planning to speak, but I have a few things written down if you'll give me the time. We should follow the report. As other people have said, 67 counties face the same exact issues except for one: management. When Delco and Monco face the same issues except for management, please tell me why they have half the turnover of Chester County. Oh, but they also have a larger department than Chester County in terms of staff members. As my friends, family, former colleagues, and the director herself are well aware, I plan to work for Voter Services from the age of 23 when I began until I retired. I love the work, I love the people, I love the mission, I love Chester County. We can throw aside accusations of outside pressure, low pay, and other assumptions, because as we heard in the report, there's no evidence to show more than one person left for pay. Each of you remember my face. You remember me overnight at Central Scan. You remember the work that I did. I will let that speak for my character. However, speaking for myself as well as other members of Voter Services that I am still in contact with and friends with, those aforementioned assumptions had nothing to do with why I left. I saw multiple people go through proper channels such as human resources and contacting the commissioners to address the management problem within Voter Services. Do you know what happened to all of those people? None of them work for Voter Services anymore. Some by choice, some not by choice. So I will say this: thank you for your time, and fire Karen Barsoom